I'm going to say this without a stutter. You will not meet a more selfless individual in your entire life.
One of the things that is super important about this profession is communication.
I think financial planning fees are going to moon, if you will.
I look at running a marathon very similar to a person's 401k.
For any of those aspiring advisors out there, where you are may not be where you end up, and that's perfectly okay.
I love that.
All right, welcome to this episode of Q&A. I am your host, Tyrone Ross. In this episode, you will enjoy my conversation with Ginger Ames, founder of Whisper Financial. We dig into all things crypto. I promise it's short, it's not long. And lastly, we talk about what is to be a more representative and equitable industry that we all are fighting for. Enjoy the conversation. See you on the next one. Ginger, welcome to Q&A. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you feel?
Okay, to be a little honest, I'm a little bit on the tired side. Just came back from the XYPN conference.
Yeah.
I did a couple speaking gigs there. So like, I'm just chilling out now.
Well, I heard you were on a panel with
Yes.
my good friend Adam Blumberg.
Yes, we co-presented on, the title was Crypto Curious, How to Involve Digital Assets into Your Practice.
Was the room full?
The room was pretty full.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We did a little like pulse of the audience to see how many people actually were involved in doing a little bit of crypto on the side.
Yeah.
And nearly every hand went up.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. They're coming around. They're coming around,
know,
starting to admit it.
that's
Get your
the thing
crypto
is-
out the closet. Yeah.
And advisors, they like to check things out before they start advising on clients with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing with that crowd is there are advisors out there that are really interested
Yeah.
and they're checking it out.
Okay.
Maybe they haven't like started advising, but they're getting their feet wet.
All right. Well, this conversation about crypto, we got to stop because if not, we'll be doing the closing bell. So we should absolutely.
Sure.
We should pivot. But tell us a little bit about yourself, your firm, who you work with, why you work with them, for our audience, so they get to know you a little better.
Sure. Well, I came into the financial planning space from an artist's background. I was a glassblower in a previous life.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
How does one become a glass blower?
you get an apprenticeship.
Really?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
As a quick little aside here, the history of glassblowing was very secret and just filled with secrecy. So it was only until like the early 90s or so that people started sharing their techniques.
Really?
So in early 2000, I got my apprenticeship where people were finally starting to share their techniques.
Advisor? So glass blower to
Glass
advisor.
blowers to advisors, because I pushed myself too hard. I hit
Right.
burnout, pardon the pun.
Right.
And I eventually found myself interested in personal finance, especially to help people who are in that creative mindset,
Ooh, I like it.
but are holding themselves back because of their financial situation.
Right.
So in order to help them really fulfill their authenticity and their creative expression,
Yeah.
I'm there to take away the financial burden.
Right. So for that creative that is watching, so we know that you're talking directly to them, what do you mean by situation that may be holding them back? Give an example or a common thread that you see in the folks that you work with.
Well, specifically, I saw so many glassblowers, instead of really going out there and trying new techniques, new designs, instead they would be like, well, I think I like this, but I don't think it'll sell.
Right.
So they just put it aside and they go with what sells.
Right.
And that's not being truthful to themselves
Okay.
and to their own personal expression.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So by the way, if you all are watching this, go to Ginger's website. Your website is phenomenal. Very well done.
Thank you.
And if you know anything about advisors' websites, you know that they are very boring. It's not. So for nothing else, for a little creative inspiration, visit Ginger's website. So that's glassblower to advisor. That's interesting. Now, I was a juvenile probation officer to advisors, so I feel like I can compete there a little bit.
Okay.
I literally remember sitting in my first job interview to work on Wall Street. It was a small investor relations firm, shout out to Financial Dynamics. And like 12 rounds of interviews, of like interview with different folks, not rounds, but individuals. And the managing director comes in after, and she's like, man, everyone loves you. You have a great conversation. She's like, but just two small things. She's like, you don't know anything about markets. And how does being a juvenile probation officer convert to working on Wall Street? I don't remember what I said, but shout out to Lisa Craddock. She gave me the job. But I think that's the beautiful thing about this industry. I'm sure there's so many advisors watching this nodding, because this is a profession where there's no direct path. right?
There is no direct
You
path.
fall into it.
There are so many people who are career changers.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that is super important about this profession is communication
Oh, yes.
and having that connection, that personal relationship with who you're working with.
Yeah.
And that's why coming from these variety of backgrounds is just so valuable to the profession.
Agreed.
Because we can actually meet people where they are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, so we are here because you were gracious enough to submit a question.
And thank you for the
Yeah,
invitation.
of
I appreciate
course.
that as well.
And come in to see us here, a beautiful location. I brought the weather with me to the East Coast, so it is, I mean, it may rain today, but it's been in the sun, sunny in the 70s. So let's get into your question. I do believe it is around crypto, which means I'm on the clock for my response. But it's always good to talk to fellow crypto hippies, so let's do it.
Sure. The question that I'm wondering is, what would you see as the 3 biggest challenges facing advisors who are interested in getting into crypto? This is a question that I feel that you are uniquely suited to answer, considering your experience working with OnRamp and other RIAs.
Yeah. So, oh man, if I could narrow it down to 3, and I think I covered this, by the way, wink, wink, in the Nasdaq Advisor Academy. Rush there, you'll see this there. The first thing I think is advisors probably have the worst case of imposter syndrome, right? The education is missing, right? And when I mean education, I mean just simply the awareness of what's happening away, right? Because everything that happens in the advisor's practice or in the industry, there's many outlets for that, right? But there's not that quality information for advisors to keep them up to date on what's going on in the crypto markets daily, monthly, how the news, all of the recent news has been happening the last month and a half. What does that mean to me in my practice and me having a conversation with clients? Also because I think this is a major AUA story, meaning assets under advisement or authorization held away. Right?
Yes.
There's 100 million accounts at Coinbase.
Wow.
Right? At Coinbase alone, it's a staggering stat. Your clients probably have a Coinbase account. So advisors should know that, right? And all of the different nuance that comes along with having an account at Coinbase. That's the first part. So I think it's an education piece that is sorely missing, right? Again, was just having this conversation with folks. The CFP board is, even if the CFP board came out and said, hey, this is the 5 things we want all CFPs to know about crypto.
Yeah.
That's enough. So the education's a major barrier. The second is part of why I was at OnRamp and what I'm building now with Turnkey is infrastructure. The ability to see crypto alongside all of my traditional assets.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
hard to do, because think about it. You just can't generate a statement for a client right now
Yes.
that has all of the assets on it, right? So integrated workflows that are data rich, right, with the ability to see clients held away asset transactions. I think from the 2019 to 2020 tax year, crypto transactions were up 360%, right? These are taxable transactions.
Wow.
It's a really unique way to help clients, right?
Okay.
So you don't have to get into layer 1s and layer 2s. Just help me understand unrealized gains, realized gains, short, long-term gains, so on and so forth.
Sure.
So I think as long as this is in the advisor's workflows, right, where I can log into my workflow, no matter what that is, an Adapar, an Orion, whatever you use, Raymond James, LPL, Merrill Lynch, who cares? But be able to see a holistic view, which is a term we throw around in this industry just because it sounds good.
Right.
But to literally see a client's whole financial life and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, so you mean to tell me you have $1.5 million with me, but you have $2.5 million away from me in crypto? Had no idea.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And this is, and it's not so much an asset allocation story so much as it a visibility and data story of just being able to see what a client is doing away from you. We all have clients that are trading penny stocks, and it's not until the penny stocks are down 90% and they tell you,
So wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
I have something to tell you.
Exactly. This is the same exact thing. So I think the technology and the infrastructure is missing, and I'm happy to say that will soon go from is to was, because a lot of the announcements, right? I mean, Google announcing custody with Coinbase, BlackRock and Coinbase, all of the Gemini news, so many different things that are happening in the space. Nasdaq announcing crypto custody.
Yeah.
sit with that for a minute, right? That's a major piece and barrier that advisors were missing. Now, we're still missing good prime brokerage, market making, true qualified custodians, not state chartered custodians, but true qualified custodians, bank chartered. So infrastructure, part 2. 3 is the best interest of the client, hiccup, if you will. Here's what I mean by that.
Okay.
An advisor that may say, you know what, this is tulip bulbs, I don't like it. Okay, fine.
Sure.
It's not in the best interest of the client. Is it not in the best interest of the client or you? It's in your best interest to at least have the conversation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whether blown glass or Bitcoin, if that is how a client accumulated their wealth, you know, as an advisor, we don't ever sit there and diminish the way someone accumulated their wealth.
Yeah.
Oh, you made your money in real estate. Well, I just don't. It's as liquid as concrete, that real estate.
So speaking to that specifically, when we took the pulse on the room, when we gave our presentation, we asked all the people in the room, so how many of you have had your clients come up to you and ask you about crypto?
Yep.
And 90% of the hands went up.
Yep.
But how many hands went up on advising? Maybe 3.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yes.
Right? And that is, again, solely because it's easier to dismiss it
Yes.
than it is to simply make it a part of the client conversation. Right?
And to be fair on that one, it is complicated.
Yes.
When it comes to crypto, it is both a technology and a financial system. You have to go back to the basics to understand it.
Yeah.
So there is a huge hurdle, and I get that when you're saying the very number one challenge is education.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then us as advisors, we feel the need to be the expert in the room, even though what we really should be doing is being the structured mind, the mind that can find the right things for you rather than necessarily being an encyclopedia. So when it comes to crypto though, I feel like it takes like 3 or 4 washes
Yeah.
before you even feel comfortable to speak about it and not sound like an idiot.
Right. Well, I've been doing it full time since 2015, every day, all day. And I still learn things every day, and it's hard to keep up with the space.
It really is.
I will say this though.
Yes.
There's this circle of competence that advisors has. And I talk about the core 4, right?
Okay.
The investor policy statement, risk tolerance, financial plan, estate plan. Nowhere in there did I mention a blockchain, did I mention Satoshi, did I mention anybody. Stay there.
Yeah.
That is our circle of competence. So,
That's true.
Mr. and Mrs. Client, you said your risk score, you know, we agreed your risk score was a 10. Dogecoin is a 97. Why does this matter to you, right? Investor policy statement, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you own crypto, we are going to have a conversation about it at least once a month or some type of communication just to be aware of what's going on in the market, right? That part of it is important. Volatility, risk, so on and so forth. Financial plan. Mr. and Mrs. Client, you own $10,000 of Dogecoin that may at one point have been $100,000. Now it's $10,000. Does that meaningfully affect your financial plan in any way whatsoever? I'm
Right.
guessing the answer is no. Right? And ask any advisor or have any advisor ask their client. Yes, the client may own crypto, but ask the client to provide a credible investment thesis as to why they can't.
Right.
Right? They
Right.
cannot. So again, that makes it very easy. Last, on the estate planning and inheritance piece, if the client holds meaningful assets in crypto, I don't care about what's going on in the crypto space. I know you have a taxable estate.
Yes.
And you have been holding this crypto for this long, and you have again, back to the data, you have X amount of gains, right? Mr. and Mrs. Client, you remember your passwords, right? Cold storage, hot
Right.
storage, all these other things.
How is your beneficiary even going to know how to access it?
Absolutely. And then we get into digital fiduciaries, which is a new thing and coming to the fore now. Who's responsible for managing your digital estate, right?
Right.
I can tell you firsthand, right? My mother calls Bitcoin a big nickel. If it was, she absolutely calls it a big nickel. I'm trying to get her it's Bitcoin.
Fantastic.
But if it was up to my family, right, and my niece, I've pulled her into this world, but it was up to my family to go through my crypto holdings and try and figure out how to pass those on or save them or whatever or liquidate them, they wouldn't know how. That's a problem. Right?
Yes.
And I'm saying that is probably the biggest crypto hippie, right, in the space as an advisor is concerned. So those are all things that if advisors stayed there,
Right.
you're talking about things that you absolutely are confident in,
Yes.
and you're adding value to the client. And the client goes, you know what, I wasn't even what's the difference between a short-term and a long-term gain?
Oh.
Right? So what I always try and tell advisors is that it's the taste like mayonnaise feel, right? Just get it to, oh yeah, this tastes familiar. Don't delve into crypto. Do what you've always been doing, but treat crypto as you would any other conversation that you're having with a client. But you do make a good point, which is why I say, as an advisor, you do want to get into crypto, you better make it a full-time thing, because you can't have one foot in and one out. It's
Right.
just, it's not going to work.
Right.
And clients will call you out because this is an asset class that was led by retail. The clients know more than the advisors.
Right.
So if an advisor sits and pretend like they know it, it'll be a good way. Like a small piece of a conversation with a client, you're going to get risk being fired over because you were trying to pretend you didn't know it, and they're like, oh, you're an imposter.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I'm taking all my assets somewhere else. But I do think you bring up a good point. And it's something that advisors now just need to throw their hands up and say, oh, it's not going away.
Right. Right.
going away.
I mean, I got to tell you, my very first client was one of those crypto millionaires.
Right.
And that's why I had to learn,
Yep.
because I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I know that this exists, and this is like this really strange digital asset kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let me try to understand so that I can at least try to advise on them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wait until a lot of the advisors watching, when their largest client walks in and they find out how much crypto that client owns, right?
This person went from 60K to 6 million in 1 year.
There you go. Right?
There's a lot to unpack with that.
Right. It is. And it's funny that I'm glad you mentioned that, because here's the other thing advisors need to know. And I've experienced this firsthand years ago working with young clients who were crypto millionaires. You try and get them to diversify, and they want to diversify into less risky crypto in their opinion. And then you're like, well, what about stocks or anything like that? And then they come back and go, oh, what about options, right? I could do naked puts and all this. I'm like, oh my God. But it's just that risk, lack of risk tolerance, if you will,
Yes.
but the inability to understand how markets work overall, which I think is another opportunity for clients. If a client walks in and owns a lot of crypto, that is an opportunity, as you mentioned, take them right back to square one
Yes.
of how markets work, right? What gains are, what portfolio diversification is, right?
Yes.
So,
And that is so necessary
Yep.
in the crypto spaces and all these forums that people are on with the crypto and hold to the moon and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. They need to know the basics.
yep,
It is a missing part of their education.
Yeah.
They might know everything about crypto, but you as the planner, you know everything else about finance.
exactly. And stay there, right? Bring the client into your world, right?
Yes.
And then what I always say is just take good notes when you're talking to them. And all right, I don't know what in the world a bored ape is, but I'm not going to say that in front of the client, but I'll research it later.
Sure.
So I think those things are very, very important for advisors to understand. Keep it home, right? Keep it in your circle, especially if you have a specific area of expertise, estate planner, tax planning, financial planning, whatever it is. Stay in your core focus and then leave it to those of us, right, that do this 24/7, 365. Make that type of individual, that type of firm, a COI, right? A center of influence, right?
Right.
Where you just say, hey, I had a client walk in, they're talking about sushi swap. Don't really care, don't want to know what sushi or swap is or how they got together, but can you help, right? And I think so long as we have a more open space and folks don't feel as if advisors are trying to poach their clients,
Right.
which has been a legacy thing that I think needs to be played out. But I let advisors know all the time, if I come in and sit with your clients and if I don't want your clients, I just want to help you. It helps the space, right? Makes you the hero. It helps to not demonize crypto.
Right.
And the client is on their path to financial freedom, which I think we're all here for anyway.
And the thing is, if you do demonize crypto and you have these people coming into your office, they're going to shut up.
Yep.
They're going to have this whole financial life that you won't know anything about.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so as we come to a close here, we spoke about this before we got on camera, and I think this is why I was so excited to talk to you, respect assured. But we were having a conversation about making our industry more representative and inclusive.
That's true.
And we both agreed that we don't look like the everyday advisor. And I think that's why this is such a beautiful visual sitting in this locale, right now at this moment. This is an incredible thing to be happening in this moment in time, in this day and time, with such a demographic shift in this country. So I want to leave it to you just really quickly, your feelings on how do we make financial advice more accessible and the wealth management space more representative and equitable?
We need more role models. We need less gatekeeping, more listening to the people in the room instead of jumping in and interrupting.
Yep.
And allowing people to speak. I love the work that Hello Choir, I believe is what they're called.
Yeah, I'm on the board.
Oh.
Shouts to Sonia.
Well,
Shouts to Hello
okay.
Choir.
All right then. I absolutely love what they're doing because they are putting people on stage who don't look like the typical financial advisor.
Yep.
And they're allowing that voice to be heard and to become a role model for others.
Yep.
So the more that we have those images, those people up on stage, the more other people will be inspired to follow
Yep. So
and to
true.
be attracted in.
Awesome. Double fist pump on that. Appreciate you for being here.
Absolutely.
Such a wonderful conversation.
Agreed.
All right, we are at the end of this episode of Q&A. Thank you so much, Ginger, for having me and me having you and you being here with me. We will see you guys on the next episode. Until then, learn before you earn. Appreciate you.